Thank you so much, Dr. Chao, for joining us, also known as the Pro Football Doc, former NFL head team doctor for 17 years with the Chargers. What brought you into professional sports?
Well, I was doing orthopedics and I like the field of sports medicine because it's the ultimate proving ground. It's the spare no expense, and getting someone back a day earlier, a week earlier is a big deal. Look, there's nothing wrong with being an internist and controlling someone's diabetes or high blood pressure, but that's a long term play. But to scope someone's knee and get them back on the field more quickly is more tangible. And, I wasn't the best athlete in the world. I played sports, and like a lot of people like sports, and saw the immediacy. And also when I was old, long time ago, growing up, right? Arthroscopy was relatively new still. There were lots of innovation. So innovation, the proving ground, sports, spare no expense, interest in sports, it just was a natural alignment for me.
And what was that experience like? Doctor, you were around some big names at one time. What was that journey like?
Well, it was an interesting journey. I mean, look, you could be the best orthopedic surgeon in the world, and you may never get an opportunity with a pro sports team. I was lucky enough to get that opportunity, and at a young age. I guess my pseudo claim to fame is I was the youngest head team physician ever. And for the first 8 years that I did it, there was at least one player on the team older than me. And so it really felt like a peer group. Now, I wasn't thinking that I was a professional athlete, but it was a group of friends. When you went on a road trip, I was young and single, you were doing something with friends. There was work, but it was just natural. And I was very lucky. Like I said, look, if you're the best orthopedic surgeon in the world, in Los Angeles up until the last couple of years, you're not going to take care of an NFL team, right? And
Right.
if you're in, St. Louis, you're not going to take care of an NFL team right now. So there's a lot of luck involved. And the NFL has been, I've actually had experience in NBA, in Major League Baseball, a little bit in NHL and hockey as well. But the NFL is, first of all, the only sport that travels its physicians, and usually three of them for every regular season and preseason match, not just playoffs. Basketball, baseball, they'll travel in playoffs. They utilize the other home team doctor. And I used to say, well, if they don't need you on the road, that was a question I always got asked. Do you travel? I'm like, well, if they don't need you on the road, do they really need you at home? If they can make do with other things. And football is the one sport, and the eyeballs and the attention and the every game, like the regular season, every game is very important. In basketball, you have more load management. In baseball, you have more rest. Okay, it's a long season, let's take time. Where NFL, it's a balance of rushing back, but rushing back safely. So that provided the biggest challenge. And honestly, I was very lucky to get the opportunity. And I think there was no question when I was brought on as the lead in, mid-season, converted from an assistant physician to the lead. It probably was an interim deal, right, until the end of the season. And but the interim worked out. So right place, right time, lucky, and hopefully a modicum of hard work and skill in converting opportunities.
For sure. And you're an internationally known sports medicine expert. Let's talk about injuries. How different is injury reporting from the time you were an NFL doctor to now?
Well, I gave a lecture a few years ago at my old fellowship, and the fellowship director loved the title, and the title was Crossing Over to the Dark Side. As a team physician, you never talk to media. I mean, this was before HIPAA, and HIPAA came into play. And of course, you don't. I actually liked HIPAA because then I could tell local media people that I knew that helped me with charity events and other things. I would love to talk to you, but there's this thing called HIPAA. Before that, you always respected patients' privacy, but there was always well, you can tell me. And I was like dodging things all the time. But with HIPAA, I liked it. I said, it's HIPAA. I'd love to tell you I can't. But like the media as a physician was just, stay away, don't talk to. And you know how the NFL works. If an injury or a status gets leaked out, you don't want to be the one blamed as the potential source of the leak. So you just stay away. And it's very ironic now that I'm out of the NFL. I'm pseudo media. But what people have to understand, I'll tell a story about a team doctor, and I won't mention names. I don't want to embarrass anybody. But I was at the Super Bowl at one of those media days, and I went and talked to him, and he was and I knew him very well. He worked at my surgery center, the whole deal. We're friends, and he was very standoffish. And I was like, "Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you any questions about your players." I said, "And if I do, I won't be able to report or talk about it. Yeah, I've already had my independent opinions, but I deal in insider knowledge, not insider information. Like during a game, there's no one to talk to. And by video, we're saying this is what it is. And there's a big difference. Insider knowledge is legal and can make you a lot of money, and insider information will get you in jail by the SEC, right? I mean, so I don't deal in insider information. And so I was talking to him at this Super Bowl event, and he was all nervous. And I said, "Well, I'm not going to ask you." He goes, "I know that." And he goes, "I wouldn't tell you." I said, "I wouldn't expect you to." He goes, "But where's the head coach?" And I said, "Over there with 500 people around him." "Oh," he goes, "he doesn't like, he knows about you and what you do, and he wouldn't like me talking to you, that we're friends, thinking that this would be a source of leak of information." So yeah, it's an interesting world. And I think I found a nice balance that I have no sources. Whenever I see something, look, I'm never 100% right. I have no sources except for my eyes, ears, my mind, and what I've seen before in my experience. So I look at what I do is I might break news on injuries, but it's injury analysis. It's injury opinion, not injury reporting. Big difference. Reporting would be the agent said, the player said, the team said. I look at what the team says, the agent said, the player said in the video, and say, this is what I think the truth is, because it's real. Coach speak is real. Look, when I was with the San Diego Chargers, Philip Rivers had a very famous, I can talk about this, it's been publicly discussed, and Philip's fine with it. He tore his ACL in that AFC Championship game, came back to play against the undefeated New England Patriots. And our head coach at the time didn't reveal anything about the ACL and other things. I don't call him a liar. He's doing the best thing for the team. It's called coach speak. And I understand that. So when I call out's a strong word, when I modify or try and interpret what a head coach is saying to what I think the reality is, I'm not calling them a liar. I'm being respectful that they're doing their job. Right. And coach speak is part of their job. And it's part of my job to interpret what I think they really mean. But it's not out of any anger or accusation of they're bad people. It's just, it's just the way the industry works.
And you possibly have already answered this a little bit, but we all know that injuries affect teams' performances, which can overall affect the sports betting market. In your career with the NFL, are there any specific instances you can think of where an injury had a major effect on a game?
The first time I got aware, I always knew that, when I started doing this, I literally was on my couch. I got married late in life, had boy-girl twins, and thought, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to continue? I had them in October. And I was like, my wife is still, she's going to be mad at me. She was still in the hospital when I left for a road trip, having birthed the twins. And I was like, how am I going to do this? And it actually worked out fine. And then I thought I could do it again. But in January, when the season was over, it got really hard. And I said, what just happened here? Well, you know what happened, Jasmine, is that when they're your first kids and they're twins, the grandparents come out of the woodwork for the first 3 months. Then after that, they're done. So for the first 3 months, we were pretty happy and everything was good. And then it got harder. So I stepped away from the NFL. And that next fall, I'm sitting on my couch watching a game on TV for the first time in a long time. And my wife's sitting next to me. And there's an announcer that says, oh, that looked bad, but he's walking off the field, so I think he's okay. And I, just talking at the TV, said, no, he's not. He tore his ACL. The season's done. And my wife, and she makes me say this every time I talk about this story, turned to me and said to me kindly, so honey, I said it kindly, she said to me, tell it to someone who cares. and she signed me up for Twitter. And I was like, what's Twitter? I don't have Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I don't have any of that. And I started doing it, and it started catching on. Other former players, friends of mine followed, and other media, and it's just started catching on. So it started as just a fun hobby. But I studied video when I was with the Chargers. After I saw a player on the field, on the sidelines, in the locker room, the next day after an MRI, we usually had half hour, 45 minutes before I met with the GM. So they had athletic trainer, and I would go up and watch film. Why? Everyone in an NFL building watches film on Monday. I was the only one who wasn't. So I said, well, maybe I should watch film and learn. I don't know what I would learn. There, I knew the answer. I knew what the diagnosis was based on exam. And that's no question, exam and MRI, that's the way to get a diagnosis. So for everyone out there that says, you're diagnosing from the couch or off your TV. No, diagnosing would mean I examine. I'm giving you an injury impression. But after studying video for 17 years, I would have the answer. And then I would look at the video for what the question was. It's a little bit like Jeopardy. Like, what's the question? How did this injury happen? And would study it. Now I don't have the answer, but I have the question, which is the video. And for traumatic injuries, and that's how we've been able to show that we've been 95% correct on traumatic injuries when there's good video. And then that's how this sort of thing came about, really kind of by accident. And to your point, getting back to your point, and I'm sorry for being so long-winded here. In the beginning, I knew fantasy people cared about it. I knew fans cared about it. But you always knew that there were gamblers out there, right? And before PASPA, you knew they were there. But as a doctor, I stayed away from that world. I didn't want to touch it. But now that it's been legalized and every state is coming on board, that's when I'm embracing it. I'm in California. I don't bet at all. I mean, I'm not getting involved in offshore. Sure, there may be something fun with a friend here and there for bragging rights, but I don't bet. But I know it's a growing industry, and I can tell you that our information. I'll give you an example this year. Okay, the end of the season last year, we were saying, and you can look at it at Sports Injury Central, sixscore.com, Lamar Jackson is not playing. I don't care what Coach Harbaugh says because of the bone bruise. And the early week lines reflected that he was playing based on John Harbaugh. And by the late week, obviously Tyler Huntley was in, and the line would move. And so we could anticipate that. The first time it really opened up my eyes was a Thanksgiving week game, Chicago Bears at Detroit Lions. And the Bears quarterback at the time, Trubisky, finished the game against the Vikings on Sunday. And I didn't notice any injury, but he was DNP right throwing shoulder on Monday for the Thursday game against Detroit. Everyone's antenna goes up. Out came an Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter, a report. It's not a big deal. He's going to play on Thursday. Well, that night I looked at the press conference from the head coach, and he said it happened late in the game when Harrison Smith hit Trubisky. He finished the game. He's fine. We expect him to be fine for Thursday. I went back on Game Pass and looked at the video and saw it was a clean, legal Harrison Smith hit. But the way that it happened, the way he went down, Mr. Trubisky subluxed his shoulder. His throwing shoulder shifted in and out of the joint. And so I came out the next day. At the time I was writing for the San Diego Union Tribune, wrote an article saying Mr. Trubisky is not playing on Thursday for this reason. And I remember publishing or seeing the article go up. I finished the article about 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday, and the line was Bears -3.5 against the Lions. And by 2:30, about an hour after the article was up, I went and looked again, and the article's up. The line moved to 2.5 across the 3 number. And there's no news on Tuesdays, right? And so that's when I knew that there's some potential influencing of what it is. Now, of course, that week, everyone kept saying he was going to play. He's going to play. Thursday morning, he's ruled out. And beat reporters came back and said, well, it was because it was a short week. And I said, no. If it was a regular week, he still wouldn't play. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure he's playing next week. And he did not play the next week either. But the piece de resistance is the next day on Friday, I saw an article, and I wish I knew who it was from. I don't remember. This reporter interviewed Chase Daniel's wife. Chase Daniel ended up being the starter, and Chase was pretty good. And obviously, you could have gotten the middle. I don't think the middle hit, right? But gamblers love the middle. It's free money in theory, right? But Chase Daniel was the starter. So the reporter asked Chase Daniel's wife, what was it like? Your husband's been a career backup. What was your week like? And she goes, it was crazy. We were having all this family come into town in Chicago, and I was going to host them late Thursday evening, Friday for Thanksgiving. On Monday, I got a phone call from Chase saying, get on a plane. So they knew, right? And at least they were foreshadowing to Chase. And so that's just the way the game's played in terms of media and sources. And I just try and decipher that. I'm not knowing of any facts. I'm just trying to look at medical information.
Okay, now we're going to talk about Super Bowl 56. It's coming up Sunday, February 13th, the LA Rams versus the Cincinnati Bengals. I want to talk Joe Burrow. How was he able to bounce back so fast after not only an MCL injury, but an ACL injury in the left knee?
And a patella subluxation. And if you remember, I actually just put up video today, a YouTube video and a Sports Injury Central article, that Joe Burrow is a different player than he was earlier this season. When he was hurt, you remember there were pundits potentially saying he might not come back next year. There was one that said he should just take 2021 off. And I was saying, no, I think he can be ready for the start of the season. However, you have to be realistic. He's going to be better late season than he will early season. He's going to round himself into shape and form. And you remember this preseason, there was a lot of doubt and whatever. And if you go to my Twitter timeline or Sports Injury Central at YouTube, you'll see where we show some videos of early season where he was taking sacks. He wasn't escapable. To this Kansas City game, where there were at least 2 or 3 occasions where he was Houdini getting out of the pocket and looked like a different guy. And a lot of confidence, and his eyes are downfield, and he's not worried about stuff around him anymore. And that's obviously what, he's a great quarterback that now has his confidence and now literally has his legs under him. So he's a different guy right now. He's full go. And we have this thing called the 6 score to show what percent health they're in. And he's in the 90s. Now, when he started the season, he was in the 60s, and he kept climbing throughout the season as we grade them. And we try and use that to help gamblers, prop bets, what percent of health is this person? So we've been trying to coin 6 scores for teams, but also individual players. So whether it's, DeAndre Hopkins earlier this season, he's going to play with a hamstring, but we assigned a 6 score of like 65 to him because he might play, but he's 1 play away from hurting it. He caught a 50-yard bomb on one of the early series and then left the game aggravating his hamstring, right? I mean, that's what we try and do, give people a number to help make better decisions about their legal wagering.
And we're going to talk about tight ends, CJ Uzomah and Tyler Higbee. They both had MCL sprains and neither returned to their conference championship games, but both are hopeful they can play come championship Sunday. What do you think?
Well, let me tell you this. If this were week 10, random number, there is no way either one is playing week 12.
Right.
Period, end of story. Okay? Because it's the Super Bowl, and I will admit, I've worked Super Bowls as a host physician, but I have not as a team physician. I hear from all my colleagues, and I say this facetiously, and by my observation, there are some great healing powers in that extra week or the 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. See Terrell Owens with his ankle fracture. See a lot of examples. No one wants to miss this game. And I'm not trying to plug anything, but we talked about it on the Pro Football Doc podcast as our host said to me, well, how do you make a decision differently about the Super Bowl versus the regular season? If it's week 10 and you're trying for week 12, you say, okay, let's say you're 70% on just a random number. At 70%, you probably sit because your backup is as good as you, and you don't want to all of a sudden be hurt again, where now you miss week 13, 14, and 15. Just
Right.
wait for week 13 to come back. But in the Super Bowl, unless you're going to do permanent damage to yourself, you've got all off season.
Yeah.
And look, so you're going to, if a guy looks okay in practice with some risk, you're probably going to let him play. And let me tell you this, for example, Tyler Higbee's great and he's important and he's a key member of the team. But imagine you're a Cincinnati Bengals and you're Zach Taylor and you have to sit down CJ Uzma, who's been with the team longer than you've been with the team, one of the longer guys who's been through a lot of injuries and fought back. And CJ says, look, I proved it. I can play. And he goes, yeah, but you're only 70%. I'm not going to play you. I mean, Uzma would be rightfully upset. His friends and the team would be upset. And so normally neither one is playing. But in this case, I think the door is open because of the special circumstances. But how well and what routes can they run is the question. And that's where the 6 score comes in. I'm not sure that they will be 100%, even if they can play. As a matter of fact, I don't believe they will be 100%, even if they can play.
Yeah, I guess time will tell. And for my last question, I know you spent 17 years in San Diego. Who are you going for, the Rams or the Bengals?
That one is actually a very, very easy question. Okay.
Uh-oh.
It's really very simple. I totally respect fandom and so forth, and I get it, but I root for people rather than helmets.
Mm.
Okay. So when I look at a game, who do I know more? Who do I like better? This, that, the other. It's about the people. I still root for the Chargers because there's a lot of holdover people on that organization, but they're not in it. So that one's an easy one. I'm rooting for Eric Weddle, who I know very well and played with the San Diego Chargers. And that's an unbelievable story. Playing safety at the age of 37 and not just playing spot, I mean, he's playing the whole game, is harder than Andrew Whitworth at 40 playing left tackle, is harder than Tom Brady at 44 playing quarterback. He's playing all snaps at 37 after 2 years off, coming off his couch. And full disclosure, I've texted with him. We've talked about it. I am clearly rooting for Weddle, which makes me root for the Rams. But the injury information, I will be very objective on. And so far, shout out to Eric Weddle. I think he's proven me wrong. I didn't think he could be that effective at age 37 coming off the couch. And so far, he is. So that's my answer.
Perfect, doctor. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview with us. I know you just got out of surgery, and we really appreciate your time.